Hi everyone, I'm Sanjana and I have Piyush with me today to talk about product-led positioning. Hi Piyush, thanks much for coming.
Yes, hi Sanjana, um, and hi everyone, whoever is listening to this.
Yeah,
Thank you for joining it.
yeah, I think we're all gonna learn a lot from this presentation. So before we go into that, I'll introduce you. So Piyush comes with 10 years of experience in marketing, and he has also got a little bit of experience in sales as well. So Piyush started his career as a sales manager, and after 2 years, he decided to move into marketing. And he also founded a live sports prediction platform back in 2016, and now he's the product marketing manager at Hippo Video. And I'm also very proud to say that we worked together at Hippo Video before I joined Leadfeeder. And Piyush is a very good friend of mine. So I'm glad to do this talk with you today, Piyush.
Yes, same here, Sanjana. I think whenever me and Sanjana used to connect back in Hippo Video, we were just duplicates or twins of each
Right.
other in terms of marketing thinking.
That's
And
correct.
that is the
Yeah.
reason why I think we connected, one on that, and second, our love for reading.
Yeah.
So, I mean, many similar factors that we connect on, but it would be fun doing this webinar today. And I think we'll keep it a bit informal
Yeah, sure.
because
We have
it
to.
need not be
No, no,
formal
no. It's
webinars that we usually used to do
no, no,
together.
no. No, no,
So
it's going
yeah,
to be very casual. Yeah. And
yeah.
we also have done the book review of Play Bigger,
Oh
right?
yes.
So yeah, I'll give the link in the description so people can watch later.
Yeah, good subtle plugging that Sanjana does.
Marketers, come on.
Yeah. So yeah,
Right.
we can
Yeah. Yeah, we'll
we can
get
start.
started. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as you know, the topic is product-led positioning, right? So, how does positioning work in product-led companies?
Okay. So positioning, I would say, is a huge area.
Yeah.
Uh, and product-led companies or product-led growth is an upcoming uh,
Yeah.
strategy for market that is coming up.
Mm.
And what I see when I mix positioning or product led growth is, first you have to decide really what stage your company is at
Yeah,
and
that's
what kind
correct.
of product you have. Is it a highly priced, if you need a sales touch kind of a product, their product led growth won't come in. What I've seen is typically two types of product led companies. That one product led company type is where you have a very low kind of pricing product, where it is a high volume product but the pricing is low, so it can be almost on self serve. That is
Okay.
one. And second, now what we are seeing with many companies doing is a hybrid model, where for, let's say, a certain segment of companies, smaller businesses, companies opt for a self-serve model where product-led
Yeah.
positioning or product-led growth comes into picture. And for, let's say, enterprise or mid-market set of audience, they don't go with product-led growth, but their positioning still comes into play. So I would say these are roughly what I've seen, two types of business models that go with product-led growth, and positioning also comes under both. But today, what we are going to talk is more around product-led growth and positioning. So that is,
Okay.
I would say, the changing scenario of product-led growth and positioning.
Okay. So, by positioning, so it also means, product messaging, right? So, so when does a company change its product messaging? Like, how does one know what's the right timing to change the positioning or messaging? Like, and how do we measure it?
Yeah. So what happens is, I've seen, in fact, I've experienced it firsthand, that many a times when I started marketing, many a times I didn't even know our messaging and positioning different. So positioning, to simply put, what we would be presuming throughout this webinar is positioning is simply a strategy, and your messaging is more subset of positioning, which is your execution. Messaging can be on your website, onboarding emails that you do, feature launches that you do. But positioning is your strategy in the market against your competitors or just within your category. So that is what we are going to presume. I'll quickly walk through on what it means to position products in certain market segments. So I'll just share my screen quickly. But can you enable screen sharing?
Oh, yeah, here it is. Can you try now?
Okay. Yeah. Just let me know.
Yeah, once. We can see your screen.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Are you able to see screen clearly? So I'll place this here.
I think you can present, yeah.
Yeah. Cool. So first, anyone who's getting into positioning, messaging, product-led growth need to understand basic life cycle of what their product stands at. Or what their product market category stands at. Because this becomes really important even before starting your messaging or positioning exercise. Many products I've seen, let's pick an example of video messaging that we do. Video messaging till maybe last 2 years was just into an introductory phase. But now it has crossed that phase after COVID. Everyone has gone remote, and now we are in a hyper growth or growth life cycle stage. Many products come into market with a Me Too product. Let's say we bring out a new CRM today in market. You can't position it the same way that you would position a hyper growth product. So I would say first just understand where you stand in terms of market categories or where you stand in terms of product life cycle. Many times, if your product you have been in the market since last 10 years, then most probably your life cycle of product or stage of the product is going to be maturity or saturation or decline. So what I've done here is just scale development to decline. Decline products are usually when a huge shift comes in. Let's say on-premise products now are seeing a lot of decline. They have been in market since last 15, 20 years, but every product would go through these stages, I would say. And it is based on market references, what is the current situation. Event like COVID can change it altogether as well. But this is what it is. In terms of product life cycle. So once we understand, okay, our market category is maybe we fit into this introductory market category, then we can deep dive into, okay, who are our competitors, who are our alternatives? I mean, are the real alternatives only just competing products, or it can be something else as well? Let's say Excel can be competitor to most of the products that we have in the market today. So it can be something simple as Excel as well. So just list down your alternative products, what is your market stage category, and then decide, okay, this is the market currently, and this is the market reference that we would be positioning or messaging with. So I usually split it into just 4 simple categories. There can be more, there can be less. One is if you're new into market, you just have to establish the market reference. If your category is new, you just have to establish a market reference. There, you're just testing the waters. Your messaging would be very functional. Let's say I come up with a product, something like an email, but which is a cleaner inbox. And there, it is a newer category in terms of inbox, but the market category still exists. So in that case, I'll have option to either go to head-to-head with the market category players, or find a niche in the current market category. I can give an example of going head to head and big fish, small pond is, I've seen recently the debate in uh, within the community on WhatsApp versus Signal.
Okay.
So Signal was for someone, Signal went head to head with WhatsApp, and it was for someone who cared about their privacy. Yeah. So they went head to head with WhatsApp on that thing, but they also used the big fish and small pond kind of messaging where they were targeting a niche who are privacy friendly or privacy concerned people. That was their audience. Still, WhatsApp is the market leader, and there is no major difference apart from privacy that, let's say, Signal is doing. So they can't even create a new category, which is the fourth one.
Got it.
So in those cases, you'll have to differentiate, okay, what is our strategy that is going to be. And the main confusion that I usually see is between going head to head and big fish, small pond. Going head to head always has to be if there is no clear market winner in the market. Let's say if you are just a new category and everyone is equal, more or less, then it can be going head to head can be a good strategy. Whereas big fish, small pond can be a good strategy when there is a clear market winner. Let's say someone like CRM, there is a huge CRM in place, and you are coming up with a new CRM, let's say just for small businesses or just for real estate, something like that would go in a category. Then you are not actually really competing with what I would say, big players. You are creating a niche of your own, and when that market category expands of your own, you will have a newer market category automatically. That is what I see. And there are a few don'ts as well. Let's say if you are creating a new category, it requires a lot of deep pockets. It requires a lot of planning. I've seen new categories successfully being created, but also it takes a lot of effort in creating new categories because you have to sell the solution rather than the product first in new categories. And the solution has to be something which is a huge paradigm shift in terms of technology or way customers persevere. Let's say take an example of what we are seeing with Gong currently. What is happening is sales was, running as it is since last few years, and nobody ever wondered why we are not having analytics behind sales. We had analytics, tons of companies having analytics behind marketing, campaigns, emails, everything we had analytics, but there was no intelligence in terms of how sales calls are measured. And that is where I think Gong or likes of other players in the category are creating a new category. So they sold a solution. They don't have a metric to attack. I would say these kind of products don't go after a certain metric, that they are not going to improve your open rates, click rates, or win rates.
Got it.
But it is more of a qualitative product. So that I would say is with market reference. And then once you have decided your reference or your position in the market with respect to competitors, then I would say for PLG products or with self-serve products or with products which are going to be going after product-led growth, just keep it simple. 5-step process that I usually work on is, let's say, what habits or preferences are drastically changing. I've taken an example here that we all have going remote in last 1 or 2 years. And then what is the big enemy of working remotely? Might be something like bad work postures or bad work desks can be a big problem or big enemy. Then you position for what would be the ideal posture or what is the ideal world. In ideal world, you won't sit at one place for 9 hours, 8 hours straight. And that is your ideal world when you have a straight, correct back posture. And that is when your product you need to bring in terms of how this product will help maintaining good postures. And obviously, you'll have to show value with numbers or proof. That is how a five-step simple process one can build a narrative in product-led growth products. I've seen many good product-led growth products building this. In terms of measuring your messaging or positioning, the question you asked around that, for messaging, I would still say you can measure, let's say, your website homepage messaging or sales messaging with how many ICP SQLs or revenue that you are getting. But positioning is something up till now or in future as well, I have not seen a metric it is being measured with. It is more like product market fit. When you launch your product into the market, what happens is you just invariably know after a point in time that there are more customers coming in, there are more feature requests coming in. Yeah, there are, I mean, after a point, you suddenly there is some switch in a month or two that happens. And that I would say would be your metric for positioning. You would suddenly see your customers converting, your sales calls or demos converting, win rates improving without any particular reason. But I wouldn't put a metric to positioning. Messaging, you can have a metric in terms of what number of SQLs or you are getting from your ICP is what I would say answer to your question, Sanjana.
Okay, and to follow up with the previous question I asked, like how do you align messaging with other teams like product team, sales team? How do you keep all the teams aligned as a product marketer?
Okay, so what happens is many times in early stages of product, you don't have to, or you don't have that much of a large team in terms of introductory stages of market. But as you cross, let's say, growth stages or maturity stages or any of the other stages, you will have product teams, you'll have sales teams. First and foremost, as a product marketer, I think first question anyone approaches product marketer or with some kind of work, even CEO approaches you with some kind of work. First question would be, what would be the impact, let's say, certain feature or the activity that you would be doing would have on the revenue. It can be revenue or it can be SQLs. But what would be the impact of the activity on the revenue, or what would be the impact of the activity on the messaging part? And then come up with a base scratch strategy for whatever work you are approaching. And then translate that same strategy doc into multiple things, be it your feature launches, be it into your sales collaterals, be it into your product messaging inside product or onboarding. That one core positioning or messaging doc then serves you along all launches or any of the sales collaterals doc. So I would say if, and even after that, if there is pushback from, let's say, one single team in terms of adopting the messaging, and it happens, trust me, more at growth at maturity stages, there would be pushbacks from certain team. That is when I would say one, either quantitative data has to come into picture. Second, qualitative analysis has to come into picture. And third, if none of these two are in the picture, then third, you'll have to have the trust of the sales team, and just they have to trust you for a week or let's say a month of the launch. And if that doesn't work, and then you have to trust your sales team back saying, okay, if this doesn't work within a month, I'll go back and fix the messaging that I had given you. So in such cases, I'll say one is measure for impact, and second is collaborate with teams better, I would say.
Got it. And let's talk about product launches or feature launches. So how do you go about feature launches, and how do you prioritize which which of the important feature to launch?
Correct. In terms of feature launches, again, as I said, this is one wheel of product marketing. And whenever, let's say, product team approaches a product marketer or anyone approaches a product marketer for feature launch, what I would do is first I'll measure the impact of what revenue or what SQLs or what is the goal of that feature. Ask whys, then make one single scratch doc with who is your customer, who are you going after, would that with this feature, is it an innovative feature, is it a me too feature, or with this feature, is it that new customers are going to come in, or is it just for awareness or retaining the old customers? So that way I would split a few features that we see. And if it is a feature that, let's say, is going to bring us new revenue and nobody in the market has that feature, then I would go all in. For a product marketer, this is the best scenario, ideally, that you would use all your channels that you have that are working for you. You would even try out new channels. I would even go to an extent, let's say, put some money on PR or some new channels, let's say YouTube ads or something like that. I would put in such cases where you know exactly that yours is a new innovative feature that no other competitor has. And plus it is going to bring in revenue. So decide with the product team in advance that why the feature is being launched, what is the impact, who is it going to target, and then decide, okay, these are 10, 15 channels, collaterals, or assets that I would need. And then plan a runway, let's say 1 month before or 2 months before feature launch, and decide your channels. I have been in situations where it is a feature that also competitor has, and it is not a revenue feature, I would say. So in such cases, I won't do a public launch. We would just stick to basic, let's say, how-to documents and very basic things that a feature would need. Yeah, newsletters. I might not even do newsletters in such kind of features. It would just be one liner in newsletter. There won't be a newsletter for this feature. It would just be other way around. But in some cases, there are awareness features that won't bring in new revenue, but it is something that is new on the market. In such cases, sales teams need not be involved, I feel, in the feature launch. You can just launch with your product team and use channels that are not sales specific. Don't build collaterals for such features. Don't build messaging for sales or sales pitches for such features. It can be just inside product or low cost, high volume channels, I would mostly say. Let's say organic SEO or webinars that we are doing currently. I would put certain features in this category. And there are some features which your competitor has in market, which are going to bring in revenue. For such features, I would put out a launch, but then I would not use most expensive channels. Like I said, let's say PR or demand generation channels, I might use with care in such cases. I would rather depend on sales team. It would be sales heavy feature launch, where sales team would get to know, let's say you'll have a list of customers or prospects who had asked this feature previously. First, we'll test it out, this feature with those certain teams, and then go for a public launch, I would say. So this would be just a gist of what feature launch would mean for us.
And how do you measure if the launch was a success or a failure?
So again, as I said, during your initial launch, if you have defined a certain revenue or if you have defined certain SQLs, split those SQLs or revenue into two. What would be a basic commitment and what would be aspiration? And there has to be a 5x or 10x difference between basic revenue or basic goal and aspirational goal. A basic goal sometimes I've seen gets achieved within 2 or 3 days of feature launch suddenly. And then you need to keep going with a goal. So that would be your aspirational goal. In certain cases where you fail at a feature launch, let's say you don't even cross your goal of that you had committed. Not, I mean, aspirational goal is out of the window. There is no commitment goal is also not being reached. In such cases, I'll go back and check where in the feature funnel is the goal missing. So I'll just distribute feature funnel into 4 things. How many were exposed to the feature? How many used the feature or got activated? And how many use the feature multiple times? So these would be 3-4 things I'll just place it on. If the gap is on people were exposed to the feature, many people were exposed to the feature but dropped out at activation or use state, then there is a problem in your messaging. Then your messaging is promising something else and not delivering on your promise.
Okay. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. So, but I've seen the other way around as well, where I have seen great activation numbers, great exposure, great use of feature, and also converting into paid. So all my goals are covered there, but I didn't see repeat usage for that feature.
Okay.
So what that would tell you is maybe people have, your users have bought your feature or bought your product for because of this feature, but they might churn out later if they are not using it repeatedly. So draw out a feature funnel in terms of 2 or 3 stages and just check where the drop is coming from.
Okay, got it. Now let's talk about onboarding emails, since we're talking about feature launches. So as a product marketer, one of our core job functions is to handle user onboarding email nurture cadences, right? So can you give us some best practices around onboarding email cadences based on your experience?
Yeah. So onboarding emails, I would say from a marketing perspective is most important aspect of PLG, because that is the only thing or only channel that is actually a core PLG channel. I would put it that way. So when you talk about user onboarding emails, I usually segregate into 2 or 3 buckets. User onboarding emails. I call them zombie, confused, and success. Zombie would be someone who has not even crossed your core product user action. So again, talking about a simple product is, let's say for Zoom, core product user action would be launching a meeting or just creating a meeting or a webinar. And confused or secondary product action would be sharing that meeting and people joining it. So that would be their secondary product action. And tertiary onwards, it can be variety. It can be webinars. It can be 100 users joining in. So I would distribute users into buckets first, because what happens with onboarding emails is there is no personalization. Even if you personalize the first name and company names, that is not personalization, to be honest, anymore. I mean, every company, every email that you receive in your inbox is doing it these days. So the only personalization that remains is in terms of how are they using the product? Are you helping, or are your emails helping them in terms of how they are using the product? For Zombie, I would say they have not even crossed your, let's say someone just logged in to Zoom and they didn't even cross your core product action. So for them, they are more at a marketing stage itself. I would say they are not even SQL, or they are not even an opportunity. They are still at marketing stage. They were somehow convinced, they signed up for your product, but then they never used it, which means they either got confused within your product, or they are not they are confused because of your messaging. That would be your zombie. Your confused would be um, someone who took the initial product action or primary product action but didn't take secondary. Let's say someone came into Zoom and they did not they created a meeting, but they never hosted a live webinar, or they never hosted a live meeting, and nobody joined in on that meeting, or they never shared. So in such cases, there are high chances that they are confused on what is happening inside the product. In such cases, the emails would be more around help articles, or let's say if there are certain integrations they are missing out on. And success would be more around tertiary. Let's say someone came into Zoom, did their first user action, hosted a meeting, but then after that, then didn't do anything. They didn't do a webinar. They didn't ever come back to the product. So in such cases, usually you can market them features now. Here with your success customers, maybe they saw your initial core features, and now you can tell them how, let's say with certain features, you have this one more feature which can help make your life even more easier. So that would be zombie confused success. In terms of user onboarding emails, I think opens and clicks are not the right metrics to be measured. User activation from your email would be the only and right metrics, I believe, in PLG growth that would be essential and useful. And again, defining your buckets and aiming for at least 10% activation for zombie to confused and confused to success. So measure your zombie confused success or your buckets on every single day or every alternate days, and then measure how your user onboarding emails are performing.
Okay. All right. So this was great. And, we spoke about positioning, messaging, feature launches, onboarding, email cadences in a very short time. So I think this video is going to be a great start for anyone who's looking to get into product marketing, or who's looking to get promoted as a product marketing manager. So I think this is going to be great. But before I let you go, can you tell me what are the go-to resources to read about product launch or go-to-market positioning or anything related to marketing?
I mean, I don't have favorites. I find favorites a very biased word. But what I would say, any popular resources that you see on positioning, go on Amazon, Google any positioning book. You will get most of the popular positioning books. Obviously, Awesome is one such book. Playbaker that me and Sanjana reviewed last time is good book on category creation. Yeah. There are many books, there are many blogs. Anything popular that you read would be good in terms of reading, but you'll have to at the end decide for your own product in terms of your product position, in terms of your product journey, and in terms of your competing alternatives. You will have to decide that what to use when. I mean, you can have all the ancillary blogs, you can have all armory with all the books, but then you'll have to actually decide on what works and what stage you are at.
Yeah.
So that I would say are few books and blogs. Apart from that, there are product marketing communities as well. You can be part of product marketing communities. One good thing, Sanjana, I noticed about product marketing is mostly open in terms of it is customer facing. You can go on anyone's website, you can decode their messaging, you can check their webinars, you can check their marketing material, you can almost decode anyone's positioning and messaging.
Yeah, that's correct.
And it is open. Unlike many other, let's say, a community like sales, you can't go on a call with the best sales person, but in product marketing, you can see what a best product marketer is doing in terms of website messaging, in terms of other pages or collaterals that they are publishing on the website. So I think product marketing is a fairly open or open source field that you can take advantage of.
Got it. Got it. So yeah, all right, Piyush, I think, I've exhausted all the questions that I had for you today. And this was absolute fun to talk to you again, talk about, marketing, discuss ideas. It was nice, talking to you, and thank you so much for spending your time with me today. I loved this entire conversation we had. And I'll give you a LinkedIn link in the description so people can connect with you later. And thanks, Piyush. Talk to you again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Sanjana, and everyone else for bearing with us. And do shoot any questions that you have to Sanjana. I mean, Sanjana is fairly active on LinkedIn and keeps talking about marketing, positioning, or any of topics related to marketing. So keep shooting any questions to her as well.
I can bring the guests that can talk about the specific topics about your questions. I can bring such guests on the YouTube channel for you. So please give your questions in my just DM me on my LinkedIn or DM Piyush. We both can take it forward. And thanks, Piyush. It was nice talking to you again. See you.
Yes. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.